What is up guys, Fahan here and welcome back to another ultimate review. This is the review of the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. Huge thanks to Royal Enfield Singapore for lending me this bike for the review.
Alright guys, so let's begin the riding review of the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. As if any Royal Enfield uses a key, and starting her up, pretty straightforward. Put the key in the ignition, press on the starter, clutch in gear 1, and off we go. Weather is kind of bad these past few days. It's been raining unpredictably. Even when I came here to Yishun, it did not rain, but it's drizzling a bit. But I'm just gonna proceed with the riding review because I need to get this done. So the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, I've ridden it about for quite a bit, and I have to say that first impressions, it really feels like Kawasaki Versys 300 in terms of the acceleration, the pickup, the performance. It feels like a Versys 300, but you have to remember that this is a 650cc motorcycle, and it doesn't perform like a typical 650 that I'm probably used to. Okay, but it gets the job done. It's a Royal Enfield. You cannot expect it to be fast because it's not built that way. It's relying on old school reliable technology without the headaches of riding an old school bike. Like this uses a fuel injection instead of a carburetor, and the original Interceptor models in the 60s, they don't even have a starter. They use a kickstart. So it's supposed to take away all of the troubles and inconveniences of a 60s era Interceptor and bring it into the modern era with the conveniences of a typical motorcycle. And being a 2020 Eras bike, other than fuel injection, other than this tiny LCD display on the gauge cluster over here for the fuel gauge and the trip meter, odometer, pretty much everything else is analog. There is ABS here, and the suspension also feels modern. I have to comment about the suspension is that it's very good. I must say that it's quite firm, but when you're going through a hump, it does absorb most of the impact. That's the thing that I like. I mean, you don't really feel the tiny little bumps, the road markings on the road. On the flat road surface, it feels firm. It doesn't feel too jerky or wobbly or boaty, you know. It really has a nice firm feel to it on the seat. Speaking of seat, weight is 202 kg. I had trouble like reversing this bike out of the parking lot. You know, I use my legs to basically reverse, and it's heavy. I mean, almost everything on this bike is like solid metal, and this is what you expect nowadays. Manufacturers, you know, they tend to put a lot of plastics on their bikes, and everything on here, as you can see, is metal with a nice chrome finish. You know, really brings out the retro look to the Interceptor. Speaking of retro, right, the Interceptor is really like, wow, something out of the 60s or 70s, you know. Nothing about this bike screams modern, you know. At first glance, you may not even know that this bike is actually first manufactured in 2017. It looks nothing like a 2017 era bike, and it's great for people who want a so-called real motorcycle, a retro inspired motorcycle, back to the good old days of the British twins, you know, without the headaches of a 60s era motorcycle. It uses fuel injection, it's an electric starter, none of the problems and headaches of an old bike, and it does get the job done. So let's talk about the riding posture. Ride height is 80.6. I'm 165, and pretty much my feet is flat on the ground. But because the engine can get kind of hot when stationary, I have to actually stand with the ball on my feet to avoid the hot engine. because yeah, the engine is really very close to my legs. But it's kind of an aggressive riding position. My body is really leaning forward quite a bit. My legs are bent quite a bit, and for me, as I'm not used to this sort of riding position, I can get kind of uncomfortable. But now that I am with the bike like for one day already, I've gotten used to it. But my butt does get sore after riding for a while, and the seat is, I have to say, it's kind of hard. I think there's an aftermarket seat from the OEM manufacturer, Royal Enfield. It's called a touring seat. I'm not sure how that feels like, but since it's a touring seat, it should be an improvement. The seat, this long old school seat, really has a old school kind of vibe to it. I forget the name of the seat. There's a proper name for it, but it's not really that comfortable for me lah. I wish that it can improve. Handling wise, have to say that the Interceptor 650 really does well in traffic. You can stay behind a car, maintain speed very well. Lane splitting wise, when going in between cars, it's not that wide, it's not that big. It does really well in slow traffic. You're able to handle the bike in urban situations, being slow, behind cars, and with the help of simple clutch. The clutch isn't that bad, unlike the NC750, whereby unlike my NC750 where it's kind of hard, this is very easy on the hand. My hands don't really feel sore when you're changing gears that much lah. One complaint that I have is that the signal indicator is only like when you're turning left or right, it shows you that you are using the indicators, which kind of cheapens out the experience. But other than that, I think it's okay lah, not that bad. I have to say that the ABS, the brakes on the Interceptor is damn good. I mean, yesterday when I first brought the bike home, somebody cut into my lane. I had to jam brake. It stops on a dime, doesn't fishtail. ABS is damn good. You can really feel the stopping power is there lah. And I have to comment about the low to mid range torque. It's very good, very similar to the Versys 300. I think you're able to get away from sticky situations. If somebody's tailgating or what, you can just twist the accelerator and the bike really goes. Look at me lane splitting with this bike now. Can really go in between cars easily. And yeah, let's take it on the highway to see how she performs in the highway. Once again, handling pretty damn good. Turns to wherever you want to point it to, leans wherever you want to lean. It's really easy handling bike. I think beginner class 2 riders will have no issues in handling Interceptor 650. Pretty straightforward, normal bike. Nothing really outstanding about it. But at the same time, it takes away all of the inconveniences of a bike,
Launched in 2017, along with its cafe racer cousin, the Continental GT, the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650 took its name from the earlier Royal Enfield 700 Interceptor, which discontinued production in the 70s. True to Royal Enfield's nature, the Interceptor 650 is a retro-inspired, simple and fun machine with value for money. The formula for being cheap and simple with a focus on reliability has worked, and the Interceptor reportedly became the best-selling bike in the UK in 2021. There are also a lot of OEM and aftermarket accessories, providing endless customization options to suit the owner's liking. Engine is a 648cc air-cooled parallel twin 4-stroke SOHC with fuel injection and a 6-speed manual transmission.
Alright guys, before I begin with the riding posture, just want to say that there's one thing that I love about this bike is that there's actually a grab handle right here for you to put the bike in the main stand. It's just easy. Putting the bike in main stand, lift up the handle, and yeah, it's already main stand. And I must comment that its Interceptor is quite heavy, weighing at 202 kg. If I have to push the bike or I have to reverse the bike with my legs, and also putting a main stand is heavy lah. But must comment that I really love the grab handle for you to put the bike in the main stand. So I must comment about the riding posture. I have to say that Interceptor is quite aggressive. You're leaning forward quite a bit and your knee is bent quite a bit. Certainly something that I'm not used to, but after like 2 or 3 days with the bike, gotten used to it. Pretty much comfortable, pretty much okay. To my personal opinion, it's kind of aggressive, but most of the reviewers online, they've said that this is typical of the standard class of motorcycle. So let's talk about the general design of the Interceptor 650. I must say that it really looks like something that's out of the 70s and 80s. No modern cues, really classic design, and this is what I would describe as the quintessential standard class of motorcycle. Really a throwback to those days. And one feature that I love about the Interceptor is that it has a very symmetrical design. You look at it from the left or right, it will generally look the same. It's like as if you're at a photo editor and then you flip the picture, it will still be the same. Speaking of the same, the gear and the brake levers, they are very similar. You cannot really tell them apart. This is kind of quirky in my personal opinion. I wish that they would like differentiate the brake lever to show that it's actually a brake lever using like a flat kind of lever as opposed to this round one, which is usually what gear levers are. And other than that, there's the beautiful dual exhaust wrapped in chrome. In my personal opinion, the twin exhaust is a very nice design. It's a distinctive feature of the Continental and the Interceptor, and really gives it a nice symmetrical look to it. And I also like the chrome that is all over this bike, something that is generally kind of popular for old school bikes, like Harley Davidson is one of them. And glad to see that there's a lot of chrome on the Interceptor, even though generally riders, they are going for an all black kind of appearance. But I'm glad they stuck to tradition. And I also like this cheat line on the tank right here. Really gives it a nice premium old school kind of look to it. And when you go to the back right here, the signals and the real tail lamp, really something out of the 80s, man. Something that you don't really see every day. And once again, dual exhaust really gives it a symmetrical look to the bike. I feel that nowadays bikes, they're more concerned with saving weight, eliminating a lot of design elements to make sure the bike is light, simple in design. But this is a throwback to those days where design triumphs over functionality lah. So nice to see it on the Interceptor, and wow, really made me fall in love with this sort of class of motorcycle. Okay, so let's talk about the gauge cluster. Kind of retro looking, old school looking, but there is a tiny LCD display where it displays the fuel, the odometer, the trip meter. Other than that, there's just the speedometer and the tachometer. There's no gear indicator except for neutral. Kind of old school, kind of retro. And surprisingly, this bike doesn't have the triple navigation as available on the Meteor 350 and also the current Himalayan. But I'm not sure if we may get one with the Interceptor for future models. Even the 2021 model doesn't have it. But I don't know where they're gonna put it in there to keep that old school look, For the handlebar controls, pretty straightforward. Left, right signal, high beam, low beam, horn and flash. Engine cutoff switch and the starter over here. Pretty basic, pretty straightforward, but I'm surprised that this bike actually comes with a slipper clutch. Really makes it easy on the hand when you're changing gear and you want to keep at first gear, in traffic, for example. Surprisingly, despite being an old bike, this bike does come with modern features such as ABS, fuel injection, slipper clutch. Those of you guys wanting, to have a retro-looking bike, but with the conveniences of a modern bike, the Interceptor really does its job well of being a classic bike with modern features. There's also a lot of accessories for the Interceptor, right? From OEM, Royal Enfield themselves, and also aftermarket manufacturers, such as engine guards. There's lots of engine guards, touring seats, fly screens, bar end finishes, brake fluid reservoir cap, and etc. All this you can check with Royal Enfield Singapore. You can check it, the dealership and the website. It's all available there. This is actually the 2020 model. I think Royal Enfield Singapore has a few stocks left, but quite limited. But for the 2021 model, there's actually a few more colors being added. The one I'm currently being reviewed is the Baker Express with this awesome red and white with this gold cheat line over here that I absolutely love. Other colors, Mark III, Ravishing Red, Orange Crush, Glitter and Dust, which is this nice chrome color, and silver Spectre. Okay, so let's talk price. There's actually the 2020 model that I spoke earlier, in which Royal Enfield Singapore still has some in stock. With COE for November COE, 20,300. However, for the glitter and dust color, which is this nice chrome finish, right, is 20,800. And for the 2021 model, with November COE, of course, 20,800. And for the chrome color also, 21,300. And this comes with 3 years unlimited mileage warranty. And personally, for a brand new Class 2 bike, this is probably the cheapest in the market lah. Horn check. Sounds pretty nice actually. It doesn't sound very weird looking, or like, you know, those old bikes whereby it sounds like there's a high pitch, but this is very mellow, very nice sounding horn lah, I must say.
And I was watching Jay Nello's review of the Royal Enfield series of bikes, and he commented that nowadays manufacturers have packed motorcycles with a lot of technology. Even the retro inspired ones, like the XSR series for example, doesn't look like a retro bike. It's somewhat of a neo classic kind of bike. And you know, to really have a real motorcycle, you know, very similar to the, I would say, Triumph Truxton in terms of these old school British parallel twins. Not really much manufacturers are making them anymore. I can think of really like maybe Royal Enfield, Triumph, Indian, maybe even Harley Davidson. They're continuously making old school bikes lah, I would say. For Royal Enfield, they've really stuck to the tradition. There's not a need for them to really innovate, change much for the Interceptor, because there's still a market for this kind of old school British bikes, you know. And with the resurgence of retro inspired bikes, you know, the Royal Enfield lineup fills up the void of what most manufacturers have forgotten, in which it's like back to basics, standard class of motorcycles that is simple, mechanically Spartan, and just easy on the get cool. Right, so we're in the highway, and you know, since it's a naked kind of setup over here, no windshield protecting me, even if there is the fly screen over here, I wouldn't do much, I would reckon. You can really feel the wind, so something that you need to get used to. But if you're not really going that fast, I wouldn't think that it will bother you. There's no reason for you to go fast on the Royal Enfield anyway. It's a bike meant to cruise. Doing my research, 20,000, 21,000, this is probably the cheapest Class 2 motorcycle that you guys can get for brand new. I personally think anybody can ride this bike, you know. If you're a big fan of cruisers and this standard class of old school retro motorcycles, or Royal Enfield in general, it's something for you, definitely. I would feel that it's not a bike for everybody. I mean, maybe people like me or younger than me, they will crave for a bike with a lot of power and acceleration. But if you're kind of guy who's like relaxing and cruising, this is a bike for you. And with the dealer support of Royal Enfield Singapore, you can be assured that you don't have to worry about this bike breaking down or lack any spare parts or what. 3 years warranty, I mean, that goes to show how far Royal Enfield has come in terms of reliability. I mean, it's normal. Royal Enfield in recent years, they've really shed that image of being this unreliable Indian bike with a bad reputation to making a name for themselves. And it shows, you know, ever since its launch in 2017, the Interceptor 650 is the best seller in the UK. That statement is really something, and that says something about the Interceptor 650. To be the best selling bike in the UK is like, oh wow. And Royal Enfield has been making a lot of improvements to their lineup in recent years. Should I have U-turn here? This is probably the worst intersection for me to U-turn at, you know. And with the wide range of aftermarket accessories from OEM manufacturer, Royal Enfield, and third-party companies. There's endless possibilities to customize the Interceptor. You know, along with the Continental, the Cafe Racer inspired cousin to the Interceptor, there's no short of customization for these two bikes. I mean, I've seen crazy modifications in other countries of the Interceptor 650, and it really looks damn sweet. You can even recognize that it's an Interceptor anymore, and it really says something about the Interceptor, you know, right? So let's give it a bit of gas. See, I told you, the low to mid-range torque is really damn good. And I have to say, when you're riding at 80 or 90, you don't really feel that you're going that fast. It's a very smooth ride down the highway, and I'm really impressed at the way this bike really grips the tarmac. You know, you can really feel the handling is really awesome on it. The low center to gravity is great, but then you must tahan a bit with the wind in your body and face, because I'm usually used to having a very high windshield on Emelina, right? But this bike, naked setup, totally exposed, something that you need to get used to. And I don't think it will be any issue if you were to bring this out for touring. I mean, I think it's more than capable of going above 100 if you want to. There's like dealer support all over Southeast Asia for this bike, and if you were to bring it to India, even better. This bike is really literally made there. And also touring, I would reckon that the Interceptor would be an awesome bike. But you know, maybe if I were to go touring, right, I would want the Himalayan, because the Himalayan can really take on the rough terrain. And I think there's rumors going around where Royal Enfield will be coming out with a brand new Himalayan using the exact engine that the Interceptor is using, but they're gonna tune it a little bit, make it more suitable for off-road situations. Can't wait for that. It's gonna be a new model probably. But yeah, I love this bike. It's a really awesome bike, and at this price point you can never go wrong. You're getting an awesome middleweight class British V-twin that is gonna do justice when you ride it, you know.
Tracing its heritage as a Californian surf bike, this modern but yet iconic interpretation of the Royal Enfield Interceptor rekindles the 60s era classic British twin without the headaches of a 60s era Kickstarter only and carburetor laden problems of the original. With Jay Leno describing the Interceptor as a real motorcycle, this UK bestseller speaks for itself.
Give me all of your